issues and the events of Arizona. And, I don't want to be taken down completely on TikTok. I've been on TikTok now for almost a year. I've gotten up to 32,000 subscribers. I have 550,000 likes. And that hasn't come easy. It's come in the context of, frankly, of censorship. And so I don't want to just simply jeopardize that by talking about a topic that might be verboten, and we all know what those are. At the same time, I feel compelled to discuss issues that are legitimate and that are in the news. So I'm kind of like everyone else in this country right now, frankly, who cares about free speech. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I don't quite know how to navigate the new censorship rules. By the way, you're welcome to join the program live by phone. You can call in 617-396-4958. What is on your mind afternoon? 617-396-4958. I believe that my program is the only program right now anywhere that live streams and takes calls. I think that I'm trying to, do, like an old-fashioned radio show where you can actually have people call in right off the street and they can discuss anything you want. Now, let's obviously keep this within the confines of reasonable community standards. And I know that those standards are not only the conventional ones that we expect from the Federal Communications Commission, which regulate radio, and which I have observed and I have respected for years. As a radio host who has broadcast on different small stations in Greater Boston for many years, I understand those concerns. I understand those rules, and I've observed them, maybe push the envelope a little here and there, but for the most part, I've been observant of them. And the new zeitgeist, however, on the internet is that it's much more controlled in many ways than is conventional radio. More controlled, and in some ways less controlled. In the ways that it's less controlled, of course, are ways that are more trivial and that maybe go to an agenda, in that you're allowed to, be vulgar and show, degrees of nudity in the videos, and do all kinds of weird antics and say stuff, that involve language that is forbidden on the FCC. But more controlled in that you're not allowed to discuss certain topics. And you can, but you kind of push the envelope when you do. And those topics simply are, and YouTube, by the way, says this in writing, that we are not allowed to question the events of November 3rd, 2020, the election. We're not allowed to discuss voter improprieties or ballot improprieties, which is more accurate. We're not allowed to discuss elements of the pandemic and the vaccine that do not comport to the official line of reasoning. Now, my contention here is that, all of these discussions are subject to some regulation. I don't think that we need to have people go out with wild and completely false conspiracy theories. That can be dangerous, and that is misinformation. It, however, I would contend, crosses into an area of censoring legitimate opinion, legitimate opposition, and that includes medical personnel, hospital personnel, respected doctors who are being censored because they question the official aspects of the pandemic. Again, I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to be censored. other than to simply state that it's interesting to me, and I'm not going to get into it, why it is that early treatment methodologies involving various medicines and drugs, of which have been FDA approved, drugs that have been around on the market going back years, drugs that have been used by millions of people for various ailments, and drugs that in various combinations under medical supervision have proven to be effective in terms of treating COVID-19. Now, I'm not going to get into the names of these drugs, because if I do, I'll be taken down. Let's just say the I drug and the H drug, okay? I think people know what I'm talking about. It's being used all around the world, in many cases over the counter. In the case of the I drug, it's being used very heavily in India. And indeed, the province of Uttar Pradesh has declared itself COVID-free. I don't know if they are, but they certainly are pretty close to it. And to that, they credit the use of the I drug. And yet in this country, it's mocked, it's banned. You have phony articles appearing in respected medical journals like the New England Journal of Medicine, and then retracted. And hospitals and big pharma and the big pharmacy companies don't carry it. They won't fulfill doctors' prescriptions for it, which is a government interference in medicine in a way that is not helpful. These are not quack drugs. Again, these are FDA-approved drugs that have been used over the years by millions of people, and that they are relatively safe, and should be used under a doctor's supervision. Of course, they're not 100% safe. No drug is. And I'm not suggesting that anyone take anything. I'm not a doctor. I'm simply saying that you have doctors who are talking about this, particularly this organization called the White Coat Doctors. They're giving press conferences on the steps of the Supreme Court. And they are doctors who are in the field. They are doctors who are handling COVID patients in hospitals, in their private practices. They're on the front lines. They know about this. They know a lot more about it than, politicians. And they are being shut down. They're being censored. They're being threatened. Why is that happening? That's all I'm asking. We have a situation right now in the United States and in many parts, it seems, of the Western world, not so much Africa, not so much Asia, but in the Western world, and in Australia, in Western Europe, in certainly in I don't know about so much in Eastern Europe, but in Latin America, where you have intense coverage of the pandemic to the point where it makes some of us wonder what's going on, if it's real. I'm not saying it's not real here for you censors. I'm just saying that the reportage of it is not even, because there's so much censorship. And you have a situation where now children are being asked to accept a vaccine. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't, because I'm not a doctor. And again, I have had both vaccines, all right? So I'm not against the vaccine. However, I'm not sure that it's efficacious for children, all right? I thank God, frankly, that my own daughter is old enough that she's in college, she's not a child, because if she were a child, I'd really be worried about it. And I'd probably be worried about pressure being brought to bear, not only by the state, but by people in my own family for her to get the vaccine. So I thank God that she's old enough to not have to deal with that. But I worry about children. Now, I'm not, again, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm not subscribing anything. I'm simply noting that this is a topic that is highly censored. And those who do question it are viciously denounced. And I'm just asking why. What's going on here? Why are we not allowed to talk about medical modalities for our own children? Now it turns out that the US government is forcing the military to take the vaccine, and they're forcing hospitals are forcing, and states are backing it up by mandates, that hospital personnel are take the vaccine. Now, these are people who have been on the front lines of the COVID battle for over a year. They have reasons for not wanting the vaccine. I'm not saying I know what they are. I'm not here to promote them. I'm simply noting that they're not stupid people. I mean, these are medical personnel, and they feel that from maybe what they've seen or who knows why, they don't want the vaccine. What's happening now is they're being fired and they're being replaced by foreign workers. That is really a horrendous and un-American thing. People should never be forced to take the vaccine or anything else medically. There are Nuremberg laws against that. They came out of World War II. There's HIPAA laws that oppose that. People should have a right to choose. Now, again, I chose the vaccine for reasons that are personal, and I don't urge people to do it or not do it. That's up to you. But all I ask is that people be informed and people have access to legitimate information from legitimate sources to make these sorts of decisions. I think that it has now been admitted that the vaccine does not stop the spread of the disease. People with the vaccine can spread it as much as people without the vaccine. So then why force people to have it? If they want to take it, they'll take it. And if not, they won't. I hope I don't get taken down for that. But I am not a legitimate source. I'm not making any claims. I'm getting a TikTok here. I'm simply noting that there are legitimate sources out there who have contrary opinions. And that's the American way. I make no claims here. I just want to be clear. Either way, with regard to anything to do with medicine. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be. I'm not claiming to be a legitimate source. If I made a claim, I would say it would not be legitimate. I'm simply noting the censorship, frankly, of people who really are legitimate sources, who are doctors, who are out in the field and who understand this issue. Again, I'm not making any claims for sources. Here we go. Because it helps, nobody said it would stop the spread entirely. Fine, then take the vaccine. It just, it seems like it's, the most vaccinated countries in the world, particularly the state of Israel and apparently Gibraltar, high levels of vaccine, over 90%, and yet they also have the highest levels of the virus. So, there are a lot of unknowns about this. Let's have our medical establishment do an honest and vigorous study of it. And let's have as well our medical establishment promote early treatments that are being used in other countries. I'm not going to get into what they are. For some reason, this is banned. But there are early treatments that apparently are effective and that don't necessarily involve the vaccine. And what about people who have had the COVID virus? Don't they have immunity? That's a question that nobody seems to want to answer in the official establishment, people like Fauci, who doesn't answer those questions. I mean, I think he's a very accomplished liar, by the way. That's my opinion. I want to see some research done there. We have the greatest medical establishment in the world. It seems like they've been politicized. It seems like they've been corrupted. Now, again, I'm going to change the subject because I'm afraid I'm going to get taken down. I'll just simply note that there are some very strange things going on around this whole thing, in my opinion. By the way, you can join the program 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. Now here I go to yet another forbidden subject, and I'm again hoping and praying that I don't get taken down. So I'm going to be careful to couch, because in this day and age, the walls have ears. It kind of reminds me historically of what was going on in Palestine in Talmudic times after the destruction of the temple, after the defeat of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. The Jewish community of Palestine was under siege. They were defeated. They were nearing extinction. The Romans were occupying in a heavy, heavy way. And yet they continued to have secret meetings where they continued to pray, and they continued to study, and they continued to conduct their religion. In fact, even to this day in the synagogue, when you say the Shema Yisrael, the most central prayer in the Jewish Decalogue, it's a declaration that you believe in God. There's a small print under it where you whisper, which essentially is a formulation of the same thing. But the reason it's there is because in Roman times, you couldn't say the Shema Yisrael. You could be executed for saying it. So you would say the second prayer in place of it as a way to kind of keep the Romans questioning, because as the Talmudic rabbis said, the walls have ears. And even though certainly I'm not making any secret about doing a broadcast right now, the walls have ears. I have to be careful about what I say, because if I say something, then the occupying authorities, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, will come down on me like a ton of bricks. Speaking of which, let me get into the second forbidden subject, and let me do so again in a couched manner. I cannot just speak my mind here. I can in other venues, but not here. At 1 o'clock today, 1 o'clock this afternoon, which is in a half an hour from now, because it's now 12:22 p.m. So in a half an hour and 10 minutes, the Arizona State Senate is to convene, and they are to receive a portion, if not the entire report, regarding the Maricopa County forensic audit. And we will find out what's in it. I'm not going to speculate here because, again, I don't want to get in trouble, and I don't know. I have my opinions, but we'll find out. We'll all find out. I would predict that if the Maricopa County forensic audit, which I would suggest was probably, if not the best and the most comprehensive audit ever conducted, one that should be the gold standard for the world in terms of how to do an audit. If the audit finds that there was no election improprieties in Maricopa County, that's going to be big news. That'll be on the front page of every paper. It'll probably make the cover of Time magazine. I wouldn't be surprised if you have indictments of people involved in the audit. I wouldn't be surprised if they put people in prison like they did with the peaceful protesters on January 6th. You know, who knows? I mean, in this day and age, with the slide toward authoritarianism, I don't know what might happen. It'll be ugly, though. It's going to be ugly either way. On the other hand, if they do find that there were significant improprieties, we're going to see either the complete blackout by the mainstream media, just like what they did to Mike Lindell's cyber symposium, which was excellent. And I'm not commenting on it, I'm just mentioning it with the hope I don't get taken down. Or we'll see smears, mocking attacks, calumny, again, investigations, people just being viciously dragged through the mud because, as a way to discredit the audit. Now, then why is it still under EUA if it is the same? I don't want to comment on that. Looking at TikTok comments here. The audit itself, the reason I say it was one of the best is because it was. You had an audit where you had about 2,000 volunteers working over a 6-month period. These were people who were vetted. These were people who were interviewed. the auditors did not know their political background. They could have been liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. That was their business. They were brought in to a public forum in Phoenix, Arizona. The audit was conducted only during business hours, unlike some of the counting that went on in November of 2020, which was done at midnight. It was done out in the open. There were cameras everywhere. Everything was recorded. You had 3 people sitting at a round table, all 3 of which would examine every single ballot. There was microscopic examination. There was laser examination. There was a thorough examination with very high standards to prove that that ballot had been legitimately cast. There was canvassing in terms of trying to prove the point of purchase. What is the point of custody? Every ballot should have that, so that they know that the ballot was connected to a registered voter. That's legitimate. Every state does that. Always has done it. This isn't new. This is what states are supposed to do. And it was all done in broad daylight. It was the most comprehensive and the best audit ever. They audited almost 2 million ballots. The only reason it's taken so long is because there have been lawsuits brought by the opposition to try to stop it, to try to stymie it. They've done everything they can to try to slow it down. Why? That's a question they should be asked. What's wrong with having an audit? Really? I mean, isn't that what states are supposed to do? Don't we all want to be sure that every vote that has been cast is legitimate, is connected to a registered voter? Don't we all want to prevent voter suppression? What is voter suppression? Voter suppression is when a legitimate registered vote is suppressed by a fake vote, by a false vote, by a ghost vote, by a vote that isn't connected to a person, or by votes that are connected to people that disappeared. Apparently, this is a phenomena as well. I'm not commenting on where and when. I'm not getting into numbers here, okay? I'm just saying that these are questions. Wouldn't we all want to get behind that in this country? Don't we want to ensure the sacredness of the principle of one man, one vote, one woman, one vote? Shouldn't every vote be counted equally in this country? Shouldn't that be the standard, the most basic standard that we have? Don't we care about that? Or do we just want to see our people win? So I would ask the opposition, and I would ask the censors over at YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else, why the censorship on this issue? All we're trying to do is find out if these votes were legitimately cast. 60-odd% of Republicans from the day of the election right up till recently have been polled and have indicated that they don't believe that the election was on the up and up, okay? Now, I think that the number probably is larger than that, but I think that most people don't want to answer that question. There are numbers of people who don't want to answer that question to a pollster when asked because they're afraid to. They think they might end up having their name on a list. They might end up being, the FBI may end up knocking on their door, like people who were at the peaceful rally in Washington. Hundreds of them picked up because they were just there. I think that probably a large percentage of Democrats believe this as well, and independents, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to admit it because they don't like the politics of it. They want to see the administration continue, and as well it should. I'm not calling for anything but that. And they just are circling the wagons and they don't want to talk about it. But I think that most Americans, my point is, have a serious question about it. So then, therefore, why not have the audits? There should be audits in several states. There are several states where there is talk about this. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, maybe Nevada. and Pennsylvania. And yet you have elected officials who are elected to uphold the integrity of our elections and the rule of law, doing everything they can to stop this from happening. Why? That's all I'm asking. I just want to know the truth about it. That's all. I'm not calling for regime change. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This just has to do with our voting procedures. I want them investigated as a voter and as a citizen, because I want my vote counted equally to everyone else. That's all. That's all I'm asking, nothing more. So anyway, the whole thing is going to start coming down today, and it's going to be nasty because of the opposition. We're going to find out, hopefully, what's going on in that state. And if indeed they do find improprieties, those are crimes. They should be investigated by the state's attorney general. And they should be, if those crimes are indeed, if there's sufficient evidence, then charges should be brought and there should be trials. You know, voter irregularities are fraudulent. They are, very bad. They're very dangerous. And we should not tolerate that in society. It is a very, very serious crime against the American people and against our society. Now, the third thing I want to bring up, which again, and I'm not going to stay on today that long. I'm going to kind of end it here before I blow my whole system up. Okay. The third thing I want to bring up is the fact that coinciding, it seems to me, with the events of today in Maricopa County, which very well may turn out to be earth-shattering, I don't know. The Attorney General's office and the Department of Justice actually tried to interfere in Arizona. And the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland, was put on notice by State Senator Wendy Rogers, who simply stated that if Garland steps foot in Arizona and tries to interfere with the state Senate's audit, he would be detained. He would be put in jail, okay? She's a tough cookie, because the Constitution, Article 2, gives the authority to conduct audits, the authority to make regulation with regard to elections to the state legislature, the Senate and the chamber, not to the federal government. People need to understand that. In fact, that's something we've learned from this last election. That's why you have now state senates and state houses taking back that prerogative and making laws to protect voters. Laws that are being attacked, by the way, by the liberal ruling class. Anyway, since the Department of Justice has not been able to touch so far the Maricopa audit, it seems to me more than coincidental that they have now issued subpoenas to people who were advisors to President Trump, possibly, at the time of the January 6th peaceful protest. And that includes Steve Bannon from Bannon's War Room Pandemic, which I urge people to listen to. It's still available on Apple. It's excellent. He's got a huge following there, and he's doing a tremendous job on all of these issues. It's a great alternative site. I listen to it every day. And that the charges are that they might have had conversations about the peaceful protest. Maybe they encouraged it. This is a witch hunt. This is the kind of stuff that goes on in a fascist country. You know, these kinds of investigations. First of all, yeah, I'm sure they did encourage it. They, and openly, a lot of people encouraged it. I encouraged it. Not what happened at the Capitol, but the peaceful rally in Washington on that day to support the events that were occurring in the Congress on that day at the Capitol, where the electors would be certified and the new president would be declared. That's in the Constitution. On January 6th, every 4 years, there's a joint session of Congress, Senate and House. The presiding president of the assembly is also the vice president of the United States. And every 4 years, the delegates are certified and the winner of the election is determined by those delegates. There have been contests to delegations going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson in 1801. This is nothing new. Even recently, my own congressman here in Massachusetts, Jim McGovern from Worcester, along with Senator Barbara Boxer, contested the Ohio delegation in 2004, which was going to George W. Bush. They said that it rightfully should have been the John Kerry delegates should have been seated. So this has happened before. This isn't new. What happens is that according to the Constitution and according to precedent, when the delegates are called, if you have one senator and one representative sign a joint letter contesting that seating of that delegation in that state, then this automatically triggers a debate, a hearing that can last up to 2 hours, where the opposition gets to present its evidence of why they think this delegation should be contested. And it goes back and forth, and both sides get to be heard, and there's questions and there's answers. And then when the thing wraps up, the president of the proceedings, who also happens to be the vice president of the United States, then has 3 options. They can either seat the sitting delegation as originally planned. They can seat the alternative delegation, or they can seat no delegation at all. And that's what was supposed to happen on January 6th in 7 states. There were 7 states up for this contest. There had been 7 signatures brought by senators and representatives to bring about that contest. That is completely constitutional and proper. That is part of our system of checks and balances. We would have, at those hearings, gotten a chance to hear the evidence brought allegedly by those alternative delegations who claimed that their elections in their states had not been conducted appropriately. We're never going to know what they would have said because the whole thing was canceled by the protesters. When the QAnon shaman showed up with his painted face and his fuzzy hat and his horns, the whole thing got shut down. Who benefited from that? It would have been televised. It was already starting to happen. Arizona was up first because it's done alphabetically. So we're never going to hear the evidence. But the point I'm making here is that the people were called into Washington to support that process, not to break into the Capitol. That was wrong. But to support that process. So if Steve Bannon and Kesh Patel and the other people that were indicted today or subpoenaed today were talking to President Trump about this, and President Trump was talking to them about it, that's fine. That's what they were talking about. That's what I was talking about. Not breaking into the Capitol. Now, I'm not going to get into what happened with the break-in into the Capitol, other than to say that there's been some footage leaked today or yesterday, which shows what actually happened in the Capitol. It was people basically very respectfully and very quietly walking around. They should not have been there. They were trespassing. There was some vandalism. They should be charged with those crimes. But the people that originally broke the door down, that's a big question. That should be investigated, who they were. Revolver, which is a media source, claims that they were unindicted co-conspirators, which probably means that they were assets for the FBI. I hope I don't get shut down for that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are questions about it. There's also questions, according to video, that there was Antifa involved, people putting on Trump garb and looking like trying to blend in. And there were eyewitness reports to that. I don't know what happened. I think we should have an honest investigation. But I think that the charge that this was somehow, overthrowing the government, I think that that's overblown. We don't know. We needed to have it investigated. I'm only bringing it up right now in the context that it's interesting that these indictments are being brought today, or these subpoenas, the day of the Arizona testimony. It may be a big distraction. I don't know what to expect from it. I would worry that it could get worse than that. Things could get very ugly very quickly. And the world we're living in right now, with the amount of censorship, the amount of this disease that we're surrounded by and that we're terrified of, and the censorship around that, it's just we're living in a world of authoritarianism, unlike anything that we've seen in our lifetime, and certainly anything that this country has seen since the brief period of World War I, when there was a national emergency declared. This is very, very dangerous time for all Americans, regardless of your political background, liberal or conservative. Liberals used to be on the vanguard of this movement. Now they're quiet. Although Black Lives Matter seems to be piping up in the right way right now, frankly, and I'm not going to get into where and why, because I don't want to get taken down. But there is opposition both in this country and around the world. Certainly in Australia, there's almost a revolution. And I'm going to wrap it up by just saying that in spite of the crackdown by the authoritarian, big state, illuminated, great reset, technocratic ruling class, we still have enough people in this country who understand freedom, who understand what the rights of the individual, and who are willing to speak out in any way they can, even if they've been banned. There are ways, there are alternative media, and the word is getting out, and we will not be enslaved by this or cowed by it. I have faith in that because I have faith in America. America still is the last great hope. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I want to thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Charles Moscowitz Live. I'm getting a big growth in that channel, and I'm hoping to continue that. Again, I say this with trepidation because I'm fearful that the channel could be taken down. If I just should note that if in fact I am taken down right now on either TikTok or on YouTube, and you still want to hear my show, I just started a show on this, what is it called? This news site, Clapper, which is similar to TikTok. Not as good as TikTok, but it's good enough. A lot of TikTokers are going there who are being censored, like myself. And go to my website, charlesmoskowitz.com, and you will see links to Rumble, Minds, Gab, BitChute, all the alternative venues which carry my videos, and also my podcast, which is on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, and many other venues. So if one goes down, I'm up on the other one. I'm determined to do this as long as I can, as long as someone will let me do it. And I hope that other people are going to be active in their own way, even if it's just talking to a friend or talking to a family member or a colleague. about your concerns. Always be polite. Always understand the context in which people are operating and be respectful of that. Most people aren't willing to hear a lot of what's going on. It's alien to them. The only thing they listen to is Lester Holt or the mainstream media. They don't know what's going on. So you have to be very careful and only introduce things in tiny drops in some cases, because in order to get the message out, we have to operate in a sense the same way they're operating or the same way they've operated, which is as Fabians, slowly and carefully and with great care and great subtlety and gentleness. We have to and we can take back our country, take back our freedoms, and take back our destiny. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching, everyone. God bless you all. God bless this great country. God bless America, the last hope on earth.